Hi, I'm Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for the podcast Different Thinking for Different Times, Season 6, Episode 20. I'm proud to announce that the Million Podcasts have selected us as one of the top 20 critical thinking podcasts, and I've added the badge to this page, and you can find it on my website at Steve. And we're proud of that accomplishment. Now, we don't do this for money. I think in 6 years, I've had $27 in revenue, and I stopped even requesting 3 or 4 years ago subscriptions, because my goal is to help people change their mind, to move from small-minded thinking that we see so much of today. People spend time railing against things they can't control. And whether that's religion or politics or your neighbors or your family, it's such a waste of time to spend time talking about your grievances and complaints and where you're in victim mode thinking, talking about what's happening to you in life. This podcast has been about looking for the gift that all of life is. That in my near-death experience, there was no place where this thinking went with me. I was one with everything and nothing. In fact, that's when I realized, because there was only the now, I call it the now on steroids, that people go searching for God, and God is in the now. And the challenge with this brain, this acorn brain, is that it wants to make everything good or bad, judge it, happy or sad. And the truth is, everything is God in the now. And whatever you call God, the quantum field, the Buddha, the Muhammad, the Christ, the Abraham, it doesn't matter, because it had no name. As Lao Tzu said, you cannot name that which has no name. And it takes expanded thinking, because we see such small-minded examples in a universe, right? That there would be one religion, for example, or the best political party, or the best opinions. All of it is BS. You can see on my bookshelf, You Might Be Full of Shit If, a book I wrote a few years ago. And when Amazon wouldn't let me advertise it, I wrote, You Might Be Full of Number 2. After all, we know better. The woke edition. And I don't make anyone wrong in these books. What I talk about is that thinking, that people who are woke are elitist, actually, thinking they know better than the rest. And then there's the conservative right, left, the ultra right, ultra left, all pointing fingers, claiming they're right, that their views are right. Now, 10% of what anybody thinks is most likely correct, and maybe it's more. The fact is, if we can consider that 10% of what anybody's saying is correct, we can have a dialogue. And that's where we're stuck. We're stuck pointing the fingers. There's no more dialogues. It's either right or wrong, happy or sad. And we're separating ourselves from this gift of life, the miracle called life, living in a universe that we don't understand to this day, an infinite universe. And based on my near-death experience, I am not trying to convince anyone of anything. What I'm telling you is, for me, in my experience, there was a physical body 1 second in intensive care, and the next second I was one with everything and nothing, one with the infinite, one with the creative force of the universe. So I want you to ponder where your small-minded thinking, where your thinking is small-minded. Are you making others wrong? Do you believe you're in the right political party, in the right religion, in the best neighborhood, or that you're better than your neighbors, or less than someone? Because we're not superior to anyone nor beneath anyone. We're all the same. And by the way, all the stuff that we are so proud of in this life, the achievements, the titles, the letters after our name, the things we've owned, the material things, none of that goes with us. It's all wasted time. If you're spending time railing against things you cannot control, like the outcome of an election, or the style of beliefs that people have, whether it's a belief in God or belief in the quantum field or the belief in some other religion, and you're making people wrong, other faith than yours, because after all, yours is right. That's elitist thinking. And God is so far beyond our comprehension and our understanding, just like this universe we live in. Think about that. We're here to make mistakes and fall. In my experience, only the good I had done was mentioned in my life review. All the lives I had touched, even people I smiled at. The good we do matters, because that's how we'll make a difference in the world. And think about, how do you feel when you do good? In this country, there's two political parties that are predominant. There's a few smaller ones, the independent. They talk about how many there are. They're not a party. Well, we need more political parties. Probably as many as there are denominations of religions or baseball teams. We've gotten stuck in one side being right and the other side being wrong, and we don't even see it. We don't even see it. And that follows through everywhere in our life. If we're making so many people wrong for their political beliefs or their religious beliefs, believe me, you're doing it everywhere. It becomes ingrained in the brain. Dr. James Doty says in his book, Mind Magic, he's a neuroscientist, a neuroresearcher, a brain surgeon also, and now a metaphysician. He talks about the brain. He said, think of it this way: a file system and a bloodhound. And whatever you put in the file system, your bloodhound goes looking for evidence to prove you're right, despite evidence to the contrary. And so if you've trained your brain that way, it's going to take a long time to retrain it. And you can. I'm writing a new book called Your Brain is Brilliant, but it's not always your friend. And why it's not always a friend. And simple strategies to change that. We can reprogram our minds. It takes a lot of work and the willingness to do it, because most people, you'll hear them say, hey, it's who I am, get over it. No, it's who we choose to be, always. And we can expand into limitless thinking that models our creator. It models whatever energy created a universe. It's all energy. And see, humans don't think of managing our energy. And when we're stuck in a loop, critical thinking of others or even ourselves, I notice my brain wants to make me wrong, wants to make me less than others, not enough. And what happens is we can retrain that, because that's how we've trained the mind up to a certain age. Neuroscientists say that up until the age of 35, the first 35 years will reflect the next 35 unless we reprogram it. fMRIs are proving, that's facilitated MRIs, where information is put into the brain and then it's imaged where it lights up. They found that negative thinkers, that our thoughts do light up on one side of the brain, let's call it the left side. And that as we reprogram our mind, they put people through exercises to help them default more often to positive thoughts. As they gave them a way to do it, a methodology, they developed new neural pathways on the opposite side where the negative were stored. So what they've determined is, just like stroke victims, we have to work to reprogram our minds, and most people don't. Most of the population doesn't consider it. And that's what this podcast is for. It's my mission in life for 22 and a half years since I flatlined and was on the other side. In fact, I think our brains are so powerful to create. Because if you can create a mess, by the way, which many people do, I did in my life many times, I laugh and say, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And I understand I have that same power if I reverse it, if I change it and get determined about what I want. I have the same power to create something wonderful. If I created a mess, if you're creating a mess now, if you're in a mess, the good news is, with a little help, you can create whatever you want, whatever you desire, whatever you dream of. In fact, I think I experienced what's next, flashing forward only the good I had done in my life review, not places I have fallen or what many people call sins. I think it's because I never believed that there was a vengeful God tracking our sins. I just didn't. I always felt deep down that we're here to fall. That's how we learn and grow. I ask people, did you learn to walk without falling? Most don't remember. And they answer, I assume not. No. That's what this life is. We're going to fall. Some have had terrific, horrendous impacts on society. You can think of some of the dictators, Hitler, Mussolini, the guy in Africa. Many people have just done horrible things. There is a group of people that think by pre-agreement they came here and took on the despicable acts so that we would learn and grow, that we would have a contrast, that we could choose not to be like those idiots. And you can imagine other names for them. The despots, the despicable ones. It's a possibility in a universe. I'm not asking you to believe or follow me. In my books, I always write, if I ever tell you I've found a way or do it my way, run away. That's why I wrote the book, You Might Be Full of Shit If. And the first chapter is never follow anyone or anything blindly. This life is your gift as an experiment to prove to yourself that you have power to create your circumstances. And it begins with accepting responsibility and being accountable for any mess you've created, because it's the same power used in a different way. Serving your higher good, and that's a question to ask. Does this decision I'm about to make serve my higher good? Does it serve where I want to go? Is it in line with what I desire? And allow yourself to vision those things, picture those things. Hang out with people that are similar, that experienced some of those things. They've achieved it already. I was going to be a priest until I met Sophie on the high school bus, and I knew I could never be Father Steve. And that led me to do an inquiry of many other faiths and other religions. And there's fascinating, a root in many of them that's similar, and yet we make each other wrong about trivial things. Just think Protestants and Catholics in Ireland for years, same faith. How about Shia and Sunni, Muslims, same faith? How about the different sects in the Abrahamic faiths? They make each other wrong because, after all, they're right. It's small-minded, and what created a universe does not think that way, at least in my experience. It's way beyond our comprehension, which was written about in Romans in the Bible. And I personally think that God didn't stop speaking to us ever, that there could be other holy books if somebody wanted to dare to write one with a different idea and a different thought pattern. Because you can see where in the Bible or in the Quran or any other of the holy writings that you can see where human small-minded thinking came in, where vengeance and war was talked about. That's human. If it sounds small-minded, it didn't come from God or the creator of the universe, whatever you want to call it, the quantum field, or whatever any of your faiths call it. And I have a faith. I have a faith in a higher power and the creative force of the universe, and I want to model that limitless image of a universe that continues to grow and expand. Just consider some of the images that are coming back from the modern telescopes, whether they're land-based or space-based. Fascinating, beyond comprehension. That's the same with what's next. We don't die. At least I didn't. I flatlined. I was on what I call what's next, and there was only the now. It was like a play, a scene and a scene and a scene, and I could not connect the events together. There was no past or future. I call it the now on steroids. And that's what led me when I came back to realize, wow, I was searching for God. God, the goddess, the divine, the universe, the quantum field was never absent from my life. It was me separating myself, which is what humans do because we want to be right. We have ego. Wayne Dyer used to say, edging God out. And that's what we do when we're not in the now, being grateful for the blessings that are all around us. I make sure to take breaks during the day, gratitude breaks, count my blessings to remind me to be in the moment because this acorn brain, it tries to take over that little voice. I encourage you to be a guest. Come on the podcast with me, reach out. You can email me, steve@stevelentini.com, steve@stevelentini.com. I'll show you one of my books. Here's one, Sage Advice, that I wrote a couple of years ago. Here's some fascinating information, by the way, in this book from sages from throughout the ages. Goes back thousands of years. It includes some living sages, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, just to name a few, and it includes many who left their wisdom on us, like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and many, many others who are no longer with us. Just think about this. Cicero said over 2,000 years ago that politicians aren't born, they're excreted. And we still, as humans, haven't done anything about it. We let people lead us that have no integrity. They tell lies. By the way, when both sides are up pointing fingers at the other, you don't know where the truth is. How can both sides be right? The truth is in the middle. And that's why we need new leadership and extra parties. And we need non-denominational faiths. And there are some that are inclusive. And any place where people make others wrong because they don't believe the same things is not from God, because God is in the now. God is right next to you when you're making someone wrong. At least in my experience, it was only the now. Which led me, like I said, to conclude my search was God for over. My search for God was over. God is here now. God is with you. God is with everyone. God is in nature, in all the creatures, things so tiny we can't see them. Lisa Randall, the physicist, posits that if there are things so tiny we can't see them, then there are things so large we can't see them. And the idea of being limitless in one's thinking, expanding one's thinking into something much larger, is very hard, because this brain is so powerful. And most people believe they're thinking. So prove it to yourself. Start to stretch your thinking. Be a guest. Come and be a guest. Challenge me. Remember, I might just ask you, does that sound like small-minded thinking? I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your listening. I'm grateful for your even considering this idea, and you got to prove it to yourself. Look at where you're bumping up against a very small-minded view that's being suggested by this brain, and consider reprogramming it. You'll have more joy and happiness and satisfaction in your life, because whether it's good or bad won't matter. You're just going to be with what shows up in the moment. I relate it to athletes saying, from many sports, I've heard them say, when being interviewed on the field after a great game or a great season, hey, how did you do this? I realized I needed to let the game come to me and enjoy the moment. Same as life. You can choose every day that this is a fantastic day. Listen, even Reese agrees, my dog, one of my dogs. Let life come to you. Recognize it as all being, the divine, the God, the goddess, the infinite. That's up to you. Or you can go on being miserable, judging everything and everyone. Make a choice to embrace this life as a gift and prove it to yourself. You will find it, especially in the darkest times. In my most darkest time, and in all my challenges, what I found over time as I reflect on them, they were great gifts moving me to something new. God wasn't absent, not absent now. Thank you. Grateful for you listening.